Good morning, Paul Pratt here from Pursuit Advisors, and apologies for the tardy start this morning. Don't like to kick off a presentation sharing that we've got some tech difficulties. However, unfortunately, Steph's trying to get on. We've had some IT dramas this morning, so unfortunately might be stuck just with me to run through things today. So let's hope Steph does join us at some point. However, I'm going to kick off and respect your time and get stuck straight into it. So we're here today, and thank you for your time to come out and hear about how to master your personal budget. So a hot topic that I probably wouldn't mind sharing is the recently announced federal budget. So normally that's announced in May, and I think it's a good story to kick off today's proceedings and put it in a bit of perspective around budgeting as such. So when they set out to do the federal budget for the 21 financial year last year, they actually were forecasting a surplus of about $6 billion. Since then, though, welcome, Steph.
Thanks, Paul. Sorry for the technical difficulties then, but I'm in now.
Just playing a prank on me, weren't you?
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, so I was just sharing a story about the federal budget, Steph, and it was initially meant to be a surplus for the 21 financial year. Obviously, COVID has then struck, and now when they announced the budget a couple of weeks ago, they forecast a cash deficit now of $213.7 billion as a deficit for the 2021 financial year. And that's already on top of some initial funding that they've injected into the economy with the initial response to COVID in the hundreds of billions of dollars as well. I took the time to look at what they're forecast, though, for the next 3 years as well for the federal budget. And they're forecasting about, let's call it $500 billion worth of deficits over the next 4 years, which, if you put it into perspective for the Australians, we've just got a bit over 25 million people in Australia. It's $7,500 per person, and that's including newborns. So let's say an average of 3 people in a household, it's $50,000 per household that we've gone into debt and going to go into debt over the coming years. So I thought nothing better to highlight the importance of a budget and understanding your numbers and where, if you've got a deficit, how you're going to pay it back, than highlighting our current situation at a federal level, and that'd be across the world. Just got a disclaimer up there as well, just to note that what we share today is basic general advice to you guys out there. So don't go out there and rush off and do every single thing we do to the last letter of the T if we tell you to go buy things in bits and pieces, but do take into account the principles that we're sharing and put in place what's right for you in your own personal circumstances. So just a thought there for the day. So a budget is effectively telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. I'm pretty sure we've all had circumstances when we've come down and if you do look at your numbers and gone, where have I spent my money? And the theme for that thought there is actually, before you spend it, have an idea about where you're actually going to place it. And you can control things before the behaviour and before the action's taken. You can only learn, though, if you're looking at it after the fact. And you'll see today that there's a key theme that you shouldn't only just set a budget, but you should also review it as well, so you can get an understanding of that there. So we are accountants. We'll try and spice this up as best you can. I do a personal budget, have done for quite a while, and we do review our spending in our house. And I'm pretty happy to say that I've taught my beautiful wife Shez to actually take care of that. And I'll share that a bit later on how simple that is and how we do it in our house. Bit of an agenda. So I'm not going to go through that line by line, but what I will note is that with questions, you'll see there with the chat box on the side there. If you've got a question, feel free to put a question in at any point throughout the presentation. If we feel it's appropriate to answer, we'll answer at the time that it comes up, or we'll pause to the end and answer it at the end. Or if we feel it's too personal to answer that, we'll make a commitment to come back to you one-on-one And that's the same with the chat. You can share your questions to the wider audience, or you can just chat Steph and I, and we can take that on one-on-one, and we can make it discreet when we're answering it. So if you don't want us to talk about names, just please let us know, because we do understand personal finances are personal. So that's our agenda for the day, and we'll kick right into it. And I'm going to throw over to Steph to give us some insight on what is a personal budget. So over to you, Steph, and I'm going to calm my nerves since you pranked me earlier. So I'm going to grab a drink.
Yeah, surprisingly, running around like crazy trying to get technology worked has actually calmed me down. So I'm ready to go. So now I'm going to start us off with what is a personal budget. I'm guessing the majority of you out there, you know what a budget is. You've heard the term before. You know what it involves. But I have included this definition specifically because it does highlight 3 important distinctions when we're talking personal budgets. So first of all, we are talking personal. It's completely different to what we're looking at when we're looking at your business budgets, and the form that itself for the budget is different. The second point we want to highlight here is that it's an actionable plan. So it's not just something you create and you chuck in the bottom of a drawer and never look at again. It's something that you sit down, put the time into, create, and then follow. And if you follow it, it's going to get you to those lifestyle and personal goals that you really want to achieve, and also the financial goals, which is the main one that we're looking at in your budgeting. And the last point here that I really want to define is that it's forward facing. So we're not talking about analyzing just your past spending habits. We're looking at sitting down, putting together a 12-month plan going forward that's broken down into months, weeks, days, if you really want to, something that's going to help you get on track, and talk about how you're going to allocate those future incomes. So we're looking at your wages here, also talking drawings and dividends for the business. And then we're going to allocate that with your personal expenses, savings and investments, reduction of debt, and then figure out the result at the end. So putting it really simply, it's all about planning how you're going to spend and save your money. Okay, so on to the benefits of a budget. Now, I could talk all day about the benefits here. Obviously, as accountants, we're pretty passionate about our budgeting. But I'm just going to run through the top 10 that we've got here. So the majority of them are going to be financially focused, but that's not the only benefits that you're going to be able to get out of a budget. So we'll go through the top ones here. First of all, we've got giving you control. So the value of having that budget there is that you can get some control over your financial future. And that really can't be underestimated. Focusing on your budget brings your focus to something that you can actually control, which obviously when it comes to money, that's what we want to achieve. We've also need to consider that the fact that your personal budget is going to give you more focus around your money goals, and also create awareness about where your money is going. A common comment we get from business clients is we sit down at the end of the year, we look at the financial statements, and their eyes get drawn to that drawings figure, and they go, no way could I have spent that amount over the year. It's amazing what you can spend if you're not looking at it. Having this visibility is just such a great way of getting awareness about where the money is actually going. Now, it's also going to create better habits and help you manage those debt levels. So watching where money is going, you'll tend to notice those trends that you're spending more money in the areas that you don't necessarily want to be spending money in. Once you can see that, it's going to give you the ability to create better habits, which is going to give you the ability to then save more money and reduce those debt levels. So once we start managing your debt levels, that's when it's going to turn around and start helping you achieve your wealth goals. Now, a personal budget also acts as an early warning system because it can help you anticipate those costs that are coming up. Now, how many of us find that when we come up to December, all those bills tend to magically appear in the mailbox all at the one time? They all seem to line up magically at this time of the year. But having that budget there can help you put that money aside to allow for that instead of getting to the mailbox and having a panic attack when all those bills hit at the one point. Now, it's also really important when it comes to communication with your partner. Money is one of those things that can cause a lot of tension in a relationship, and it's actually one of the top 3 conflicts in a marriage is money. So I'm not going to go into the others, but I think we can all guess what those are. But having the budget in place gives you a point to start the communications on. It gives you a basic starting point to keep it neutral and not cause any arguments, theoretically. But at the end of the day, if you've got a budget and you use it as one of your wealth creation tools, you're going to end up with more money and arguably less conflict and less stress. So if having a budget is such a smart thing to do, then why aren't we all doing it? Now, Paul, I know you said that you're doing it, which is fantastic to hear. So you want to share a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, I can, Steph, and I'm not going to skite and say, yeah, cool, we're doing a budget. I'll actually be really honest and share that we've only been doing it for about, I would say, 2.5 years and sticking to it. Tried to do it previously and the like, but I can share why it hasn't worked with some of these reasons that you avoid budgeting. So up until 2.5 years ago, didn't really have a personal budget and didn't stick to it. And I can see the reasons why if I reflect back on that if I looked at by default, unfortunately, for people in our profession, it's just assumed that we would take care of the finances in a household, and I'd probably taken on the share of looking after our finances and hadn't shared them with Shez, my partner, and was working in finance and then trying to go home and take care of a budget and keep those things is the last thing I really wanted to do when I've been talking numbers all the time. Made that change though to get Shez's buy-in and actually teach her to be able to use Xero. So we actually do it on Xero, and it takes her about 10 minutes on a Monday night to effectively have a look at what we've spent for the full week because we've set it all up. And then once a month we'll review it. If I hadn't made that subtle change and got complete buy-in in our household and had someone else do it, I'd still probably be at the point where, I'd set a budget, not stick to it and those sorts of things. So really important to take the time to set it up because there is extra work to do at the start. But once it's done, it's really, really easy. And I mean 10 minutes. 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes on a laptop or a phone or an iPad once a week to have a look at how you're tracking and reviewing it and making changes there. The word budget does scare people out there, and it does sit there and go, okay, we're going to cut costs. It's actually the other way. It's like having a spending plan and going, okay, what am I going to spend on for the year? So how much do we want to spend on holidays? How much do we want to spend on kids' extracurricular activities? How often do we want to eat out and what do we want to spend on that? So it's not a budget, it's a spending plan, and putting money towards that, then just being aware of what you spend. Like, it's pretty easy to have multiple subscriptions going for things like you can have Stan, you can have Netflix, where there's the Google Play. Like, there's so many different things there, and it's just being mindful of what you've actually got and making subtle changes there. Third one, don't know how to prepare one. Fortunately, with tools out there, and we're going to share one today, and technology, it's becoming a lot easier to be able to prepare one with tools and technology. And then it's the education part that's really important about that. Fear ties into the fourth and fifth one there quite well. It's a lot of people are scared of knowing the truth, or scared of their partner knowing that they buy coffee every morning on the way to work. They take their lunch to work, but that's not enough, so they sneak off and go out to the cafe and buy a cake or a pie and those sorts of things, or every time they go get takeaway, they buy a can of Coke or something to go with it instead of maybe sitting there having a water out of a tap. And all those little things can add up to a considerable amount of money, and people don't want to bring that to the attention to their partner, let alone themselves sometimes, about what they're actually spending there. And that ties a bit into the pride too. Like, I'm cool, I've got my money sorted, I'm going okay. I've got money in the bank to be able to go do the next thing that I want to do. But imagine if you could make savings of $100 here, $50 here, and and then add that up across a month, then a year, but then 10 years, you're actually talking tens of thousands of dollars that you can potentially save in that. So some scary reasons there, and just lazy. And that was one of the reasons I wasn't doing one step. I was lazy. I couldn't be bothered. And it'd be real. And I'm so glad though now that our family does one and we review it, and we've saved a lot of money on stuff that we didn't need, and we still get to experience things when we can, when we're not locked obviously up in COVID and those sorts of things. But we've got a great appreciation of money and where it goes, and we're teaching it to our kids, and that's really important to teach it forward to the next generation. And people would hear at work, I talk about the importance of having a budget and encourage people in our team. And I know there's a couple of team members that have from that gone and set up their own Xero files and doing it. And I love seeing that, because I know they're making good financial decisions for not only themselves, but also the next generation, which if we can all help one person get better at understanding money and where it goes and spending it appropriately, we might be able to pay back our budget deficit that we got to, Steph, at some point when we start getting hit with all these extra taxes.
Oh, yeah, at some point it's all going to come back.
So the components of a personal budget. So think about your sources of income. So some people in business, so as Steph said before, you've got dividends or drawing, or you might pay yourself a wage from there. Your partner might have a part-time job or casual job. You've got wages there. You may have some interest in a bank account or some shares or an investment property. They're all income figures from a personal perspective that should be taken into account. And then on the reverse, you sit there and look at the key expenses to break that down. And I'd like to take the point out, I suppose, of that interest one. So a lot of people think it's a good idea to park some money in an account to, I suppose, save for, say, a holiday or school and bits and pieces. And if you haven't got the discipline to put the money where I'm about to say, that's a great idea. But also think about where that money's parked. So you could, instead of having it parked in a low interest or no interest account at the minute, because we know how low interest rates is, if you've got credit card debt or even no credit card debt but a mortgage, it should be sitting in preferably an offset account, but also, or if you haven't got an offset account, a redraw account. And that's quite an effective tool. We do that personally at home, that we effectively run everything through an offset account, so it's offset against our mortgage. And that saves a lot of money from an interest perspective, because the banks make enough money, don't give them any more.
Yeah, yes, they'll take every penny that they can. So if we've got the ability to, rather than have it sit there earning nothing, to claw some back, then I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. And the categories are important. I think being able to put it into categories about where you're spending your money around, like what do they have to spend money on versus what are the things I'd really like to spend on. And if you focus on what you have to spend money on and then look at where you can save, like I just shared with, say, having an offset account or even challenge your bank on the interest rate, those sorts of things, potentially creates more money to spend on the things you want to do. So that might be ensuring that the kids can do an extracurricular activity or two outside of school. It may allow you to save enough money to go on a holiday or treat yourself out to a treat, to say get takeaway or go out for dinner. So trying to break that down and looking at those categories there, like housing, we know that light and power costs X. There's other providers out there, but there's also things you can do to minimise power. And again, certainly not going to be, I'm not the green vote or anything like that, but there is things that you can actually do to minimise your power bills and other things that you use as well, which I think is really important. And then talked about debt and lifestyle. Like, we're all here to have a good time and make sure we enjoy ourselves. We want to have money. So we want to have money in our budget or in our spending plan for our lifestyle. Make the sacrifices on those other things, and then you can have the discretionary spend that you want to do the things that you want to do as a family. So that's how I break up a personal budget. That's how we break up ours. I've got it set up in Xero in those categories, Steph, when we look at it and we assess where it is and we check where we can save. And some months we pass and some months we fail, but we learn from it and make changes because we're aware of it. So talking about that, so keeping on track. So really important about that monitoring of it. So as I said, we monitor our personal budget on a monthly basis and make changes. And think about this. So let's say you eat out twice a month and it costs you, let's call it, you're eating out pretty good. So you're spending a couple $100 on a month on eating out because you're upsizing, you're buying an extra dish and all those sorts of things. You sit there and make some subtle changes over a 3-month period where you can drop that by 10% each time. So not saying cut that out of your budget, but be mindful of what you're spending it on and get that down to a point where you maybe only spending $140 per month. That adds up over a year to well over $500 per year that you can save to do other things. You times that by 10, and then with other savings you can get from interest and bits and pieces, you probably create yourself 10 grand without actually taking takeaway out of your lifestyle. You're just being more mindful of what you're spending it on. And there's some things that you can buy elsewhere at a lower cost point than out there. And I'm not here to try and tell you to not go support local businesses. Huge on supporting local businesses if you can afford it. Like, there's no point supporting local businesses if it's going to send your family broke, because then you won't be able to support them at all. And then our local communities will have to then provide support to you guys. So everything in moderation. Big on supporting local businesses though, if you can. And change your budget for circumstances. So people may have lost a job or had their hours cut. When that happens, check your budget, and you might need to have a look at that discretionary spend. And instead of a holiday, and I hate saying holiday at the minute because we haven't been able to go on them, but it's probably the easiest way to emphasize that. Instead of going to Queensland, we can't anyway, we could still have a pretty cool holiday in our own state here in Victoria and do it substantially cheaper. So again, don't cut it out of your budget. Just change how you actually spend that discretionary spend so you can still have that lifestyle choice and enjoyment with your family that you deserve to have.
It's those little changes that really add up. Until you sit down and start looking at it in detail, you sort of think, $10 here and there, it doesn't make that much difference. But when you look at it across the board, it can really make a substantial difference to your lifestyle.
And it's never too late to start. Like, as I said, I'm 40 next year. Didn't really start doing it till I was late 30s and already seeing the benefits. So it's never too late to start. The earlier you start, though, or the sooner you start, not the earlier, the sooner you start, the greater the chance to achieve that clarity plan. So your personal lifestyle that you want to achieve on the longer term as a family unit.
And the sooner you'll start seeing those benefits as well. Now, today I was hoping to share our whiz-bang template with you, but unfortunately technology is letting me down and I don't have access to share it. So we do have an Excel template that we will be giving out to everyone that's registered for this webinar today. It's a really easy template to fill in. It's got fantastic graphical data at the top to show you how you're going month by month as well as for the year, and also identify those areas where you're spending more than you'd like to. I will be sharing that with everyone after this, but unfortunately I don't have the ability to show you on screen today, so I do apologize for that. But I do want to touch on the use of Xero for personal finances. So I know Paul has talked about this briefly, but I did want to go over this in a little bit more detail. So while we do have that spreadsheet we'll be sharing with you, there are so many different options that you can use for your personal budgeting. So originally when I started off budgeting, I had a pen and paper that I sat down and wrote down just the main categories, and I set aside money every month. And that worked. It's a way of doing it. But it's not the only way. So we want to look at the way that's going to be best for you to get to those goals. And Xero can actually be fantastic when it comes to personal budgeting. There are a lot of benefits. So the main benefits I want to talk about here is the ease of tracking your actual expenses and your actual spending without relying on manually entering data. So as fantastic as spreadsheets are, us accountants love our spreadsheets. There is so much data entry required. You need to manually go in and enter everything again, whereas Xero can do that for you. So it's already pulling out your bank statement information, and all you have to do is say what that relates to, basically. If you're using it for business, you'll know how fantastic it is and how much time it can save you. Another benefit here is the ability to track your budget versus actual really quickly. Once you've got everything coded up in Xero for your personal finances, you run a quick report. We've got your budget set up in Xero already, and it can quickly show you if you're going over some of the budget limits that you've set, or perhaps if you're doing a really great job and saving money on those areas that you've identified that you want to change. Also, if you're looking for finance, it can be fantastic at getting those spending reports that the banks love to see at the moment. So their banks are big on getting that detailed information out of you on where your money is going. You can quickly do this through Xero. You don't have to go back and think, how much did I spend on clothes last year? And geez, did I really spend that much on shoes? Xero will tell you the bank for you. And then it's really actually quite cost effective. So the non-GST cash book edition, which is what we use for personal budgeting, it comes down to less than $3 a week, which is nothing. It's not even a cup of coffee. So it's really quite cost effective. And if that can save you a lot of money, then I really don't see much of a downside to it. And Paul obviously is a big fan of that. So I think he's the best one to sort of explain how it works, if he has anything more to add, because he did give a bit of information there. But I know, Paul, you said Shez does this for you, so it's not even something you do yourself.
No, I'm lazy. I'm lucky I've got a lovely wife that understands now that I've taught her how to do it, and she does it, and she'll actually sit there and the kids are in bed on a Monday night and go, shit, I've got to do Xero. She'll do it, and then she'll bounce a couple of questions off me. Did you spend that here? And there's a full transparency. There's no way to hide where you've spent money. So even then, it does help even identify if you've got, say, people that may have issues. So they might be trying to hide spending from partners and bits and pieces. That it brings it out, and it allows those people to get help. And I've seen that out there as a powerful tool to help people deal with habits that they're trying to kick and the like too. So yeah, really important to do, really easy to do. And I'm glad that Shez takes care of it, but I do enjoy when we sit down and look at it on a monthly basis where we've gone and the changes we can make. And then we set on calendar year. So we'll be coming up to setting our calendar year budget for the 2021 financial year in the next month or two. And we'll use what we've spent this year and what our plans are for the next 12 months to help set that. So that's really important as well. So that's annual planning, monthly review, weekly sort of processing, and 10 minutes a week. If you can't find 10 minutes a week, I don't know what you're doing with your time.
Just making that priority. If you look at it with the money that you're going to save by having the budget in place, that those 10 minutes are so valuable. But then, like I mentioned at the start, a budget isn't something that we just want to set and forget. So you really want to be monitoring it. That's a big key when it comes to your personal budget. So if you put it together and then you chuck it in the drawer, like I mentioned, all you're going to achieve out of having that budget there is a waste of a few hours of your time. You're not going to get any benefit out of it. Preparing the budget itself will be a valuable experience, because you'll be able to see where your money is actually going, but it's only the first step. So you can't just set it and then forget it. The real value comes when you're looking at your spending habits and you're starting to see improvements, and you're also having those open and comfortable discussions about where your money's going and if you're on track to achieve those personal financial goals. So the key is to track your spending on a monthly basis at least. So you can do it annually, set your budget annually, but look at it more regularly than that. You want to be able to see that visibility and make those changes when they need to be made, rather than just once it's already too late. And when we're talking about communication here, so some couples discussions about money and spending, budgeting, they're fairly normal. It's part of their day-to-day life. But there are others out there that aren't quite as comfortable with that. But having that budget there gives you that, I guess it's kind of like a third party to help with those discussions, to make it more neutral, less judgmental, and just get the information shared. Now, throughout the process, you want to try and keep it light, I guess. So money is one of those tense areas that we come into. But if you keep it light, you celebrate your wins. That's a big one. it's going to keep you on track, and it's going to make you feel fantastic about seeing those savings when you get them. And another thing, so like Paul mentioned before, you don't want to hide this from your kids. You want to get your kids involved with this process. So show them that you're setting time aside to set up your budget. Show them that talking about money's quite normal and it's lighthearted. It's not something that's really going to stress them out, I guess, when they're older and they're experiencing these things. So you want to set their financial journey off on the right foot.
Thanks, Steph. Next steps. So, yeah, it can be confronting to have a look at your spending. Certainly not bringing it to attention to judge people or anything like that. So if you're putting a budget together and then you're sharing it with us, we're not going to judge. We're here to help. We're here to educate. And people out there have got, they may go to the gym and they might have a PT and those sorts of things. We certainly don't have the skills to do that, but we do have the skills and the accountability things to put in place to be able to be like your financial mentor as such and give you the tools to create the freedoms you want in your lifestyle. So it's about setting some bigger picture goals and breaking it back to the day-to-day habits and understanding and getting clarity about that there. So that's why that annual personal budget or spending plan is really important, and focusing on the things that you can control. So, and the benefits that having a budget will deliver to you, not just now, but in the future. So that's why I always use time, like compound time, and think about those savings on a weekly basis and take that out over months, years, and even decades for some of us that have got a long time in our working careers left. That's a substantial amount of money for your retirement to be able to enjoy. Not saying that you become a Scrooge and don't enjoy life now. That's I'm one of the big believers of that. You've got to make sure you enjoy your time here, but you've also got to make sure that you're creating some lifestyle choice at the end as well, and not going to be relying on government benefits if that's what you choose to do. And having a budget, I think, gives you the ability to do both, and reviewing that budget and not sticking to it, but learning from it and following it gives you the choice to do both. Suppose now chat about how we can help you. So number one, just if you got some awareness out of today about it's not scary to have a budget, it is easy to do. As Steph said, we've got a cool template that we can share with you to be able to set up a budget and do a budget. There's many things online that you can Google. I know ASIC, for example, one of the government websites, the Money Smart website, has some tools and tricks here. We feel that the budget template that we've got is the most practical one we've come across over the years. So we're happy to share that and leave that for you to use on your own. And then you can talk about ongoing maintenance. So as Steph said, if you convert to, say, set up a zero file and those sorts of things, if you did that yourself, it's $10 a week. So $10 a month, so less than $3 a week to actually be able to do that. It's not a lot, and the investment in that will save you considerable amount more than that investment. Some of you, though, might want to get some additional support. So we put together a couple of different offers around giving you that template, sharing it with us, as well as some other information. And we'll put together a report and a review of your budget. As I said, no judgment at all, with some recommendations, and show you where you can save across some things that you can control. And what we're also saying is if for some reason that we can't show you savings of at least that $550, we won't charge you. So it's effectively a money back guarantee. We're confident that we can deliver savings and the habits to help you improve your financial budgeting. So comfortable to do that. And then the third option is not just the one-off support. We're happy to consider working with you on an ongoing basis to provide support and education. And that might be like you think with a PT, you might only need to do that with someone for a month. You might need to do it for 3 months. You might need to do it for 12 months. In the end, we want to give people the tools so they can do this themselves, because that is the best way to do it, because then you're not paying someone else. You're actually using your time and you've got greater ownership of it. And you're saving on paying other people to do it. And more importantly, you're actually putting the habits and the learnings in place and creating a better financial picture for yourself, your family and the next generation. So they're the three options that we've put together. Steph will share that after the prezzo, the actual template. If you're interested in one of the other two, we will touch base and check in with you over the coming days to see if that is of interest.
Now, unfortunately, guys, we have run over time a little bit. We got a bit excited there with our budgeting topic. So those questions that have come through privately to us, we will get back to you. If you do have any other questions that haven't been popped in the chat box yet, feel free to reach out, send us an email. Paul did mention that we will be in touch, so you can always ask us at that point as well.
Thanks, Steph. And didn't get to do an intro to you, Steph, because I was running around worried that I was going to do it on your own. You've done a fabulous job for joining this and you put the power of work to put this together. And for those that don't know, Steph's actually been working as the longest employee in our business. And earlier this month, she actually became an owner and director in our business. So, which is super exciting for Steph and her family, and also us and our team and our clients. So congratulations, Steph, on that achievement in your professional career.
Thanks, Paul. It's been pretty exciting, and it's great to be here now as an owner.
And thank you, and love to have you here. And that there, so don't think of the mountain that's in front of you or the staircase. We can all take that first step towards achieving, understanding how to set a personal budget. And that analogy applies to anything in life. Like we take that first step towards something. The first step's the most difficult to do. Once you've done that, you'll reap the benefits if you continue the momentum to do that. And I flagged before about time being an excuse, don't have the time or we're lazy. I actually Googled the stat, Steph, and I don't believe everything on Google, but having this What's the Social Dilemma, I believe this one to be fairly accurate. It's probably even more accurate right now. The average Australian that's over the age of 14 spends almost 6 hours a week on social media, just on social media.
Yeah, I believe that one.
And for some demographics, so for those between 14 and 25 of the female variety, and I'm not singling out females here because the males have got certainly some vices that are worse that I won't share here. It's twice that. So that's a scary stat. So if you can't find some time to budget, you're kidding yourselves. You've got the time, and it's a great thing to do, and your family will thank you for it, and your future generation will. So finishing, thank you all for coming along. I've enjoyed sharing and talking about budgeting, something that we are very passionate about. Thanks for taking the time out and sitting in with us today, and take care and enjoy the run home to Christmas as these restrictions hopefully continue to ease. Thank you.
Enjoy the freedom. Thanks, everyone. Bye.